All right, you guys, you get us in our scrubbies because we just tackled this right after a bike ride, and I'm having surgery on Monday, so I can't do recordings for a couple weeks. We are focusing on Martin Luther King Jr., and he was an amazing man. He helped change the United States, and I also think that he really helped change the world. And we are focusing on capitalization. So as we are going through this report with Martin Luther King, we're really focusing on capitalization here. What needs to be capitalized? So we've gone over and talked about some things, but we're really talking about events and periods of time in this lesson. For a description, general use, you do not capitalize. So if you are using them for just general uses in parts of your speech, you're not capitalizing these things. So here's two sentences. The political campaign from 1968, called the Poor People's Campaign, was designed to help fund the education for the poor. Now, right here, this is capitalized because this is an actual thing that happened. This was an event. It was the Poor People's Campaign. It was an event that was happening, and so it's actually capitalized. If you look at this, poor people campaigned for equal rights in the 1960s. So right here, it's not capitalized. This is capitalized only because it's the beginning of this sentence. It's not because it's this part right here. See how people isn't and campaigned isn't. And oftentimes, if you're using equal rights in a certain way, then you are going to have to capitalize that, depending on how you want to use it in your sentence. In here, I'm using it for general use, so I'm not capitalizing it. We do not dance the same way as they did in the 20s. So here is a period of time. This we do not capitalize if this says we do not dance like they did in the 50s or in the 15th century. We don't capitalize periods of time when it's dated like this. So just make sure you guys remember that. To understand, to share your love for people like Martin Luther King Jr. did in his determination to demonstrate resilience with his protesters. People really fought against him as he fought for equal rights for everybody. He cared about people. He loved people. He wanted everybody to be able to have the right to an education. Sweet Auburn is the historic neighborhood of our good doctor, and it features the Center for Civil and Human Rights. So right here is a place. So that's why this is all capitalized. But right here is doctor. And if I put doctor right here, because he had a doctorate degree, if I put doctor, it would have to be capitalized if it was in front. If I said Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., then it would be capitalized. But since I'm using it right here as in general use, I'm not capitalizing doctor. This is capitalized because it's a place. Now, loyally, Martin Luther King Jr. was a Baptist minister that taught in the Ebenezer Baptist Church. Now, look at this capitalization. So we have Martin Luther King Jr., obviously. Those are capitalized because it's his name. And then Ebenezer Baptist Church, this is the actual place, so it needs to be capitalized here. And Baptist is also capitalized because that's the name of his religion. So he taught in the Ebenezer Baptist Church on Auburn Avenue in Atlanta, Georgia. So Auburn Avenue, that is the actual street right here that this Baptist church is on. It's capitalized because it's a street. Street and the avenue. Avenue is always capitalized. Atlanta, Georgia, this is the city and then the state. Make sure you comma that. Both need to be capitalized. In the 1960s, Martin Luther King was an amazing civil rights activist, and he fought for the civil rights for all men. So look right here. I want to make sure that if you see a semicolon like this, oftentimes when you are joining two independent clauses like this, you would do a coordinating conjunction and a comma, but I chose to do a semicolon for an example right here. you make sure that this is not capitalized when you have a semicolon right here. Because I could have chose to put a period and made these two different sentences, but if you have a semicolon, do not capitalize right here. He fought for the civil rights for all men. There's also a place called the Renaissance Walk at Sweet Auburn. Sweet Auburn is an area where Martin Luther King grew up, and it was starting to get run down. And so people came in and designed this. The Renaissance Walk at Sweet Auburn is now open, featuring different artists, and they have a place to share with other artists. You guys know what Renaissance actually means? Renaissance, essence means born, and means again. So you're being born again. So they made this place a Renaissance place to where people can come and be together and share each other's ideas. Martin Luther King was not born, and they named him Martin Luther. His dad, Martin Luther King Sr., actually went to Germany and learned about Martin Luther that was born in the 1400s. He transcribed the Bible from Latin and Greek into German, so the regular people, the regular Joes like you and me, could actually get the scriptures, be able to read the Bible, to be able to read the Word of God. He was so impressed by Martin Luther that he,
But him doing that, wasn't that illegal? To translate the...
Yes, it was. It was so illegal for Martin Luther to translate the Bible, and so he got in a lot of trouble. He went through a massive persecution, but he did it because he felt that the scriptures needed to be shared. He was a Catholic monk, and he had access to the scriptures. He could read Latin, he could read Greek. In those times, only certain people were allowed to read Latin and Greek, and only certain people were allowed to read the Bible. And so Martin Luther King Sr. loved this man and his diligence to get the Bible and the scriptures out to all of us, that he changed his name, and he changed his son's name. Martin Luther King Jr., they were both named Michael, and they changed his son's name to Martin Luther.
The last name, right?
Yeah, King is his last name. A lot of people get Martin Luther, that was born in the 1400s, mixed up with Martin Luther King. So don't do that. They're two different people. They did two different, really great, wonderful things for their time. And they got in, both of them got in a lot of trouble.
Made them die, right?
Yeah, well, Martin Luther King was assassinated, and Martin Luther was imprisoned. And then he eventually was able to get out and get married and have a life. We capitalize words such as department when it is a specific institution. The U.S. Department of Labor and the Department of Housing and Urban Development, right here, these departments would not exist if it wasn't for Martin Luther King. He cared so much about how much people made. He cared so much that people could make enough money to support their families. So he really cared about the minimum wage. He wanted people to be able to support their families. So he was a huge part of this department. He was a huge part of making sure that people had a place to live. And so this exists because of Martin Luther. Such as bureau. Now remember, the word bureau is a French word, and if you see E-A-U at the end of the word, it's very hard to read, and it means bureau. This word is difficult to read because it doesn't follow any of the spelling rules unless you know it's French and you know E-A-U says O. So that's how you would read this word. Dr. King was assassinated in Memphis, Tennessee on April 4th, 1968 at the age of 38. Now, I think he did an amazing amount of wonderful things in his short life. I can't believe he was assassinated at such a young age. Now look at this. Right here, it's capitalized because it's at the beginning of doctor is capitalized. Now, if we put it back in here as more of the general use, then it wouldn't be capitalized. But look, Memphis, Tennessee. Memphis is capitalized because we have the city and then we have the state. So remember, those are capitalized, and you have to have a comma between. April, it's the month. So make sure that you are capitalizing your months. So you do not capitalize the seasons or semesters. So I wanted you guys to remember, seasons are easy to remember that we don't need to capitalize, but we do not capitalize semesters either. The Federal Bureau of Investigation carried out legalities to see if the Bureau carried in some degree, now this is the abbreviation for degree, responsibility in investigating the assassination. Look how we have Bureau is capitalized right here. So it's in the name. So if it's officially in the name, you know it needs to be capitalized. But look right here, why is this capitalized? Because it's actually talking about this bureau. So this bureau is the FBI. Do you guys know that? The Federal Bureau of Investigations, FBI. But if we're talking about that and we're just coming back to this, we capitalize bureau because it's relating to that. If we're just talking about bureau in general uses, you wouldn't capitalize it, but you do here. Such as office. Now we're talking about, when do you capitalize office? Now look, Dr. King, again, is capitalized because it's before his name. Dr. King graduated from Morehouse College, where they have the Office of Institutional Advancement. Look, it's in the name of this. That's when you would capitalize it. And the office of the president. See how it's in this official name. So that's when you would capitalize it. Because of his dreams of nonviolence, helping the impoverished Americans, and his solid belief in prayer pointed him to fame in his action to demolish evil. I want to point out right here, he is famous in his action to demolish evil. He was so amazing at making sure that everybody had a chance in this life. And he wanted to get rid of evil. So I'm indeed grateful for the good doctor. So I am actually really grateful for what he did for our country, what he did for the world in making sure that we are demolishing evil in our actions. Now look at this. Doctor is not capitalized. Look how it's capitalized here, but it's not here.
What's the DR?
Oh yeah, and you would capitalize if you said doctor, you would capitalize that there too, but you don't capitalize here. But look, we have Americans capitalized. If you have anything that goes with a country, you're gonna capitalize it. So Americans is also capitalized. All right, I hope that was helpful, and we'll see you in the next lesson. Bye everybody.
Thanks for watching, everyone. Stay tuned for the next video. Bye.